Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Liaquat Zaman. This is my YouTube channel, Roots of Knowledge. Check out the videos that I make. I make videos to help you guys understand the Arabic language, Islamic sciences, fiqh, and others. Now, this series is we're going through the book Mukhtasar al-Qudoori, which is a classical Hanafi fiqh manual text. So, we are on the last lesson of ghasab. So, let's go for it. So, first of all, walad means child. Maghsuba means the usurped, the thing that has been usurped. Nama is produce, the growth or produce. Thamara is fruit. And then bustan is garden, maghsub, we done that. Amana is a trust. Again, a lot of these words are going to be very easy for many of you guys. Ghasib is a usurper. Halaka, to perish. Daman is compensation. Yata'adda, to transgress. Yatlub, to seek. Malik is owner. Naqasat, so to decrease. Naqasat. Walada, birth. Qima is value. Saqata is to drop. And then you have Ghasaba, naqs. Isti'mal is usage. Nuqsan. Khamar is wine. Khinzir is pork. Pig. Muslim is Muslim. Islahlaka is to use up. Okay, to use or to destroy. Right, so let's move on to the next one then. So this is the tarkeeb part. You guys enjoy tarkeeb. Waladu al-maghsubati. That's going to become the mubtada. And nama'uha is ataf onto walad. And then samaratu is going to be ataf onto that as well. Al-bustani al-maghsubi. So this is the sifa of. Amanatun is the khabar. في يد الغاصب فإن هلك في يده فلا ضمان لا نفي الجنس إلا أن يتعدى في الفاعل يتعدى تعديا طلب يطلب أو يطلبها مالكها فاعل فيمنعها إياه is the second مفعول به, so يمنع has two مفعول به here. وما نقصت, new sentence, وما نقصت الجارية, so نقصت, it means the جارية. بالولادة فهو في ضمان الغاصب. Okay, so ضمان الغاصب. And فإن كان في قيمة الولد, so كان في قيمة الولد مضاف إليه. وفاء, this is going to be the ism of كان. به جبر النقصان or جبر you can say النقصان بالولد. وسقط ضمانه عن الغاصب ولا يضمن الغاصب منافع, so this is المفعول به, ما غصبه إلا, and this is supposed to be ينقص, two dots there, so yeah, إلا أن ينقص باستعماله فيغرم أو يغرم النقصان في الفاعل. وإذا استهلك المسلم فعل فاعل. خمر الذمي أو خنزيره ضمن قيمته مفعول به. وإن استهلكه المسلم على المسلم لم يضمن. Right, so that's the tarkeeb. Let's have a look at the masna. Now, today's lines are not that many. I know you're probably thinking, why is it so less? The reason is because these were the only lines left of the chapter. Right, so let's say, for example, there is an animal, right? So let's say this is the horse. A horse has been usurped. Or let's say a slave woman. Okay, slave woman. And this has been usurped by a very bad person, Mr. Usurper, the Ghasib. He has usurped, right, the horse and the slave. And he's also usurped, one more thing, a garden as well. So three things he has usurped. He's usurped an animal or a slave, a garden, right? So all these items are considered to be in and of themselves is compensatable. So basically, the ghasib would have to pay for these if anything was to happen to any of them. The question is not that. The question actually is, what if they were to produce something? Like, for example, the horse produced a baby horse. The slave one had a baby, a small baby, and the garden produced fruit. Okay, so let's say fruit were produced in this garden. What is the status of the fruit? Now, the fruit has not been usurped, the baby, because the baby was not there prior to the ghasab. So let's say, for example, there's a timeline. Let's say in January, he took the horse, right? So H, S, and G, the horse. And then let's say in July, for example, all of these gave fruit, right? So you had the baby horse, you had the baby, and you had the... So all those things now have come. What is the status of these three things? That's the question over here. So the ruling of all of these three is that these three will be treated as amana. Right, so it's going to be treated as a trust. And the rulings of a trust are, you are not responsible if they get damaged unless you were the one that caused the damage. Yeah, so unless you are the one that caused the damage. So let's have a look at this then. Waladul maghsubati, the child of the usurped item. It could be a horse or it could be a lady. That's why I mentioned both of them. Wanama'uha, and its growth, anything that grows. So I didn't mention growth, but growth could simply be like it becoming fatter, bigger, right? So all the extra, it could be the nama. Wa thamaratul bustan, or the thamara of the bustan, the fruit of a garden. Al-maghsub, that has been usurped. Amanatun is all considered to be amana. So in this case, the baby is going to be amana. The fruit are going to be amana. All of these are amana fi yad al-ghasib. So what's the rule of amana? In halaka fi yadihi, if it perishes in his hands on its own, that's what you have to add in here. On its own, فَلَا ضَمَانَ عَلَيْهِ, there is no compensation upon him. إِلَّا, unless يَتَعَدَّى فِيهَا, he transgresses in these things. So if he was to deliberately kick the baby and it died, obviously person wouldn't do that, but let's say they did. And fruit, if he was to deliberately eat the fruit, crush it, whatever. That's one way the amana rule drops. So if you write this down then. So one of the ways that it no longer remains amana, so if I was to maybe put it over here. So this is when unless. Let's put unless there. Unless, number one, he transgresses. So gross negligence, we call this. Gross negligence. Or number two is if the owner demands and he refuses to give. So the owner has come and he said, give me back. So let's say, for example, this is the owner, and the owner is saying, give me back my items. And he's saying, no, I'm not giving you back now. By him saying no, the amana automatically becomes ghasab as well. So now, not only is the horse ghasab, but also the baby. Not only is the slave ghasab, but the baby. And not only is the garden, but also the fruit. Makes sense? So amana becomes ghasab if that happens. Oh, yatlubuha, or the original owner seeks it, fayamna'uha, and so he refuses, the ghasib refuses to give it, iyahu, to him. So iyahu is him, right? And then it becomes ghasab. Khalas, everyone understand this? Let's move on to the next one then. Remember, all these masail are very, very easy to understand, not difficult at all. Straightforward, inshallah. Okay, so now let's go back to this one then. So if anything was to happen, so now let's say, for example, in July, because it's going to work here. In July, for example, let's say the slave woman, she gives birth and something happens to her. Yeah, she becomes blind, right? Or she loses a limb or an organ, right? So something happens because of the wilada, because of the childbirth. Now what's going to happen here? So the rule is that this will be counted as compensation. So he has to compensate. وَمَا نَقَصَتِ الْجَارِيَةُ, and any deficiency, decrease that occurs in the jariyah because of childbirth, فَهُوَ فِي ضَمَانِ الْغَاصِبِ, then that will fall under the compensation of the ghasib. The ghasib will have to pay for these. Anything that happened because it happened in his care, even though he might not have caused that problem directly, but because it was in his care, then he has to pay for that. Now, if she was to die, then obviously he has to pay for the whole value of the slave. Now, what if there is a child? So let's say, for example, there's a horse gives birth, horse becomes disabled, or the horse dies. So now we look at the value of the baby horse itself. So look at the value of the baby horse. إن كان في قيمة الولد وفاء به جبر النقصان بالولد. If there is in the value of the child wafa'un, so wafa'un basically would translate as compensation, or I don't know, how would you translate? Let me know in the comments how you would translate this. Wafa would mean something you fulfill, fulfillment, completion, topping up. Jabara nuqsan, he or it would, the child would, jabara, it would repair, make up for the deficiency through the child, or he would rather. The man would make up the deficiency with the child. Right. So what does this exactly mean then? Right. So let's, for example, say that the horse is worth, let's say, 500, and the child is worth 100. So let's say the horse gives birth to the foal, the baby, and becomes blind, loses a limb, and that is worth 100. Now, because the child is worth 100, that 100 will now make up for the deficiency of the 100 there. So that's minus 100 over there. So that 100 makes up for it. Does that make sense? So whatever amount the child can make up for, the fruit can make up for, that goes towards the value that has decreased. And if it's too much, so let's say, for example, the horse has decreased in value by, let's say, not on 100, but let's say 400. Yeah, so it's lost 400 value. So in that case, we would say minus 400. So there's 100 left, 100 plus 100, which is 200. And therefore, he has to make up another 300 for the deficiency. Make sense? Okay, so this is what he says over here. He says, وَسَقَطَ ضَمَانُهُ, its compensation, the compensation that was required, will drop عن الغاصب, according to the value of the wafa means to make up. Yeah, what was used to actually make up for the value of the child. This is called the wafa. Yeah, so in other words, the liability of the ghasib has been uplifted if the value of the child can make up for this deficiency. Make sense? Inshallah, it makes sense. Next. Okay, so وَلَا يَضْمَنُ الْغَاصِبِ. Now, this is a very important masala to understand, which is when it comes to ghasab, then a ghasib can do ghasab of two types of things. Right? So a ghasib might do ghasab of a physical item. Let's say, for example, like this is supposed to be a car. Yeah. So a car, physical. So if the ghasib was to damage the car, then he has to pay for the car. Right? So whatever damages, he must compensate. So pay. Let's say, however, he was to do ghasab of, I don't know, he took someone's car. He actually taken someone's car. So Monday he's taken the car, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He's, I don't know, put the car onto the back of, like sometimes on trucks. Yeah, he's gone and put the car onto this truck and he's taken it away. And he's done that on Monday. And then he returns the car on Saturday. So this is when he returns the car. So that means all of this time, the car has been in the possession of the ghasib. And in this time, the original owner was not able to use the car. He was not able to gain the benefit. And let's say, for example, because of the car, he didn't have the car, he had to pay, let's say, I don't know, £50 for commuting traveling, taxi, £50 on that day, £50 on that day, £50 on that day, right? £50 on that day, right? So now you've got 5 days of 50, 50, 50. So that's altogether £250 he's had to pay from his own pocket because the car has been taken. Now this is called manafi'. He has lost out on the usufruct, on the benefit of the car, right? The benefit of the car. So is the ghasib liable to pay for this one whole week of not being able to use the car? Right? In other words, can he get money back because someone else lost out on that? So Hanafi say no. There is no daman on the manafi', on the manfa', and the benefits. You can't do that from the benefits. Yeah. So this is the problem that you have here. So this is why he says, وَلَا يَضْمَنُ الْغَاصِب. The ghasib will not compensate manafi'a, the usufruct, مَا غَصَبَهُ, that which he has usurped. إِلَّا, unless أَن يَنْقُسَ بِاسْتِعْمَالِهِ, the item decreases with its usage, in which case فَيَغْرَمْ النُّقْصَانِ. So this is supposed to be يَغْرَمْ النُّقْصَانَ or يُغْرَمُ النُّقْصَانِ. You can do majhul. I think I made a mistake, so let me correct my mistake. يَغْرَمَ النُّقْصَانَ. Yeah, what do you guys think of mistake? Right, so now, unless, for example, this guy, the ghasib, has used the car, worn out, used some petrol in that car, then he pays for that. So anything which he has physically used, right? So any sort of physical usage, like petrol, or for example, like damages to the paint or to the tires, then that has to be paid. That is something that you must pay. Otherwise, you don't pay for the manafi'. Everyone understand this? So this is a very important rule to understand the Hanafi madhab, that you don't pay ghasab, you don't pay compensation of ghasab because of another person not being able to take benefit from the item. What you pay for is if you cause damages, physical damages. Okay, and the last masla now is this. So let's say, for instance, there is let's just move this a bit so you guys can see it. So let's say there is a non-Muslim. So we'll call him Jack. And Jack has some wine. And he has a pig. Yeah, some wine and some pig. Khamar and khinzir. We know that khamar and khinzir are not allowed for Muslims to buy and sell. Let's say this ghasib, let's say a ghasib, who's a Muslim, has taken these items. So he's taken these, he's the ghasib. Now, do the same rules apply? Yes, the same rules will apply. So if he was to damage any of these, spill the wine out or kill the pork, then he would have to pay the value. So the khamr, let's say, for example, is worth £50, and the pig, let's say, is worth £100, he would have to pay £150, right? Because it's worth something according to the non-Muslim. So because the non-Muslim gives it particular value, then this person is liable. So إذا استهلك المسلم, when a Muslim was to use up or damage khamr al-zimmi, the khamr of a non-Muslim, dhimmi is a non-Muslim living in a Muslim land, or khinzirahu, or he was to damage his khinzir, dhamina, he must pay the compensation of its both value. Now let's say the same thing happened, but instead of Jack, it was a Muslim, right? So let's say, for instance, it was a Muslim guy who owned these. Now remember, how can a Muslim become an owner of alcohol when he's not allowed to buy or sell? How does a Muslim become an owner of alcohol? So he actually can become owner of alcohol by making alcohol at home. So if he makes alcohol, then he obviously can become alcohol owner. He just can't sell it now. Right? He can't sell it, he can't drink it. And how can a Muslim become an owner of a pig? So the way that he becomes the owner of a pig is obviously if he hunts a pig, or if he inherits it, when he was a non-Muslim and he still got it in his ownership. Right, these are some of the ways. Let me know in the comments if there's any other ways you can think of. So if this guy is a Muslim, let's say it's Zayd, and the ghasib takes it from him and destroys them, then there is no compensation. Khalas. That's the masla. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. What do you guys think of this chapter? Which is the most enjoyable chapter to you guys, let me know in the comments, inshallah. Now, let's have a look at some questions that you guys can answer. Let me know, do you guys enjoy these types of questions that I put up? What is considered a trust in the hand of the usurper when it comes to a female slave and an orchard? What's the answer? The offspring and the fruits. Number 2, under what condition is the usurper not liable if these things perish? Do you know the answer? Let me know in the comments. When does the usurper become liable regarding the child of a female slave? When does he become liable with regards to child? Let me know in the comments. How is the deficiency caused by childbirth in a female slave compensated? So you look at the value of the child and it becomes a wafa, fulfillment of the deficiency. What happens if the value of a child equals the deficiency of the mother? What do we say? If the value of the child is equal to the deficiency of the mother. So the deficiency is 100 and the value is 100. Put in the comments. Is this usurper liable for the benefits of the usurped property in general? Is the usurper liable for the benefits of the usurped property? Is he liable? Yes or no? In what situation must the usurper pay for the decrease in value of the usurped property? In what situation must the usurper pay for the decrease in value of the usurped property? And what is the ruling if a Muslim consumes the wine of a dhimmi, if he uses it up? So the word consume could mean use up. What is the ruling? The same thing, but if he uses the pig of a dhimmi. And what is the ruling if a Muslim consumes or uses up the wine and pig of another Muslim? All right, and then remember there's a difference between the two. Let's have a look then. Okay, so just a general overview of what we covered today. So today we talked about the issue of the child who's born from an animal or a slave that has been usurped, or the fruit of land that's been usurped. What's the ruling of that? So we said it's amana. When does it not fall into amana rule? When transgression has been done to it and demanded by the owner and he refuses to give. What happens if the original item that has been usurped, it falls deficient, something happens to it and its value drops? What happens in this situation? So we said that if there is a child, we can use that to pay for the deficiency. And what about a ghasib who takes something from someone, stops them from benefiting from the item? Does he pay for is he liable for the usufruct? So we said no, unless he uses something up physically. And finally, what about the ghasib who takes pork or wine from a dhimmi and takes pork or wine from a Muslim? Which one does he have to pay back? We talked about this. We said he has to pay back the dhimmi, not the Muslim, because the Muslim is not supposed to actually have these anyway. He can own them, as I explained, the specific scenarios of ownership, but he can't have them. So because he can't have them, therefore, if he damages them, he will not be liable for them. Khalas. Jazakallah khair for watching this video, guys. Really appreciate the support that you guys give me as well. If you guys want to support me more, please share my videos, put them on your statuses, and let other people benefit from them as well. And also, if you want to become a patron, support my channel on a monthly basis, you want to donate towards it, please check out the Patreon symbol on the screen. Check out the description as well. And I will see you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.